Welcome back to the College Football Corner with Fletch and Randy. Right here, sponsored by Dubby, the great energy drink. Got some coming in, so Randy can have some too. We're going to have shakers. We got cool stuff to drink. We'll have maybe a giveaway if you guys are fortunate enough, which you should be. All you got to do is watch and learn and listen. But go to w.gg, type in FN Network when you want to purchase and get 10% off and help out the show. And you'll like it. It's good stuff. I highly recommend the Beach and Peach, but you really can't go wrong. We had a lot of samples, and they were very good. So, without further ado, Randy's finally on the line. I've been waiting for him all night. Just kidding. He's been waiting for me. What's up, Randy?
Doing good, Flesh. Just waiting to kick off this big weekend of college football.
No doubt. It is a monster week. So, let's anything you want to say before we get into games, or what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking that, a little bit of what we've seen, just in the last couple of weeks. One of the favorites early on, and we talked a little bit about it last week at our post-game show, was, Clemson is now, absolutely not what people thought that they were with that loss to Syracuse, and that third loss.
Yep.
In my opinion, certainly puts them out of the playoff race. I don't know if they can rebound from that or not. They got so much going on, and now Dabo's chapping his gums, and it looks like the wheels are about ready to fall off of that.
I would certainly have to say that they got to win out just to be considered to be in that large, because they already got 2 losses in the conference. It's going to be hard to get to, not let alone win the ACC championship with 2 conference losses. That's 2 tiebreakers you got to overcome. And let me tell you what, just like you said, Syracuse, they didn't just beat them. They beat them bad. I mean, they pushed them all around, and that was at Clemson. That was crazy.
Right.
So I think it says a lot about Syracuse. It's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. Who knows? But, yeah, that's a big shocker. There are actually a couple of people on the national scene, if you will, that picked them to win it all, the whole thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
CFP and everything. So
yep.
That's a shocker, because they did have a veteran team coming back. A lot of guys that they're almost like a Buckeye kind of thing, where everybody wants to come back and do it, and it's just not going together the way they wanted to. It's
right.
Heaven forbid, it's almost looking like Florida State last year, but it's early for that, so we don't want to call that.
I almost said that very same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. Trying to think. I had a little. I think I was texting you late Saturday night about my little parlay there, and I had 5 teams. 4 of them won. The last one was USC and Michigan State. And Michigan State, or USC, needed to win by, I think it was 15 and a half or something, whatever the line was. And with 3 minutes to go, they were not ahead by that much, and I'm like, it was killing me. And then they threw a touchdown pass to take the lead, big enough to cover, and I was going to win like $500. And all I had to do was get 3 and out. Michigan State, first play of Michigan State getting the ball on the kickoff was an incomplete pass. The second play was a bomb, and the USC DB fell down, and the guy caught it and went in the end zone. I'm about ready to split. 2 o'clock in the morning, I stayed up to watch myself lose that money. It stinks. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. It just proves I could never be a gambler. I mean, there's just no way I could live through that. That'd be crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. It was fun to do with free money, and I got absolutely nothing for it. So,
there you go.
No big deal. Yeah. But, from last week, Vanderbilt rolled on. A lot of teams kind of rolled on. Some teams rolled over, and so it's setting up what makes to be a pretty nice week of football starting tomorrow, which is some good teams. Florida State goes on the road against Virginia, and a lot of people are saying good things about that game. Virginia's a tough team, a hard out. It's not going to be a cakewalk. They don't expect, but you never know. Florida State, if they're what they could be advertised, they could, blow that team. I wouldn't be crazy if they blew them out of the stadium. Now, if Virginia blew Florida State out of the stadium, that'd be a little different. But so that's a good game tomorrow. So is TCU at Arizona State, and I know Houston's playing Oregon State too. But 2 ranked teams playing tomorrow night, both road games, and ACC and Big 12. So it could be some upsets in those respective conferences. But then we get to Saturday, and we start the whole thing off at high noon, big noon on Fox, with USC traveling to Illinois, a really, really ticked off Illinois team. They got the doors blown off them by Indiana last week. And what a game that was.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And, and honestly, I don't know what that says about Illinois, that, if it says more about Indiana or Illinois, but, that was a little bit of a shocker the way that thing went. I mean, Indiana just came in there and just let them have it. This with USC coming to Illinois, right?
Yep. Traveling almost all the way across the coast.
Yes, I mean, when you have that travel across the country thing, I mean that plays in a little bit. We've seen it in the past, where it certainly makes a difference. Get that, I don't know what they call it, flight fatigue or
jet lag, whatever.
Yeah, jet lag, whatever you want to call it. So I really don't know. I really don't know what to expect in that, but I'm going to go ahead and take USC in that game.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Illinois. We'll differ on this one. I'm thinking Illinois is better than people think, although they're not as good as Indiana. They're not that good, but they're better than people think. They played a good game going down to Duke out on the road and went down early to beat them. I think SC, I was looking for a lot more on defense last week, and I didn't see it. So I think I definitely think Illinois is a running team, and I think they'll control line of scrimmage. So yeah, we'll split on that one for sure. I'll take Illinois at home for sure.
I wouldn't be surprised either way, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, not laying any money.
Right. Yeah. I'm not betting on it. So.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, TCU and Arizona State. If I had to pick, I'd say Arizona State's been a little hot the last year or so, but TCU looked pretty darn good in opening weekend against. I can't. Who they blow the doors off of? I got it right here. It's my computer's fast enough. Oh yeah, they just embarrassed North Carolina 48-14, but hasn't everybody embarrassed North Carolina? So it's right. They're like 0-3, so it's going to be home cooking on that one. I'll take Arizona State.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So we're doing let's see. So we'll talk to USC and Illinois. There's a Syracuse playing home, cooking to Duke. I kind of like Syracuse. Again, that's not really a game we're going to pick. We'll stay for the high ones, if you will. But is there anything else in the top, the 12 o'clock hour you want to talk about that's not the ranked on ranked? I know Notre Dame's playing at Arkansas. That's an interesting game because Notre Dame really can't afford taking another loss. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, they absolutely can't. So.
Yep, and Georgia Tech can't afford. Georgia Tech can't afford a letdown against Wake Forest. That's for sure. So them, if they want to stay in the race, with not losing any ground in the ACC. So they're really good, really nice, good games. Pitt and Louisville should be a nice game. Rutgers and Minnesota should be a nice game. A lot of filler games as you head to get into the second part of the day. Ohio State travels to Washington, and I've heard upset alert 2 different times on the satellite radio for that game. And I think it's fair. Go all the way out west. Washington's usually a hostile environment. They're loud in that stadium. And they have won, 22 straight at home. The coach that's there now, Jed Fish, hasn't lost a game at home since he's got there, which was right after the year they went to the national championship game because Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama. Ohio State's got a young quarterback that's playing his first true road game, and it's not a cupcake. So Ohio State's going to have to really button up the hatches and play tough defense and be smart on offense and, not let this one get out of hand. But all that said, I'm going to take the Buckeyes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to take the Buckeyes. I mean, given the fact that they are making that trip out there, which, plays a little bit into it like we just talked about. But, the way that their defense, the way we've seen their defense capable of playing and, really with the new quarterback, he's I think he's moving right along. Maybe not, and he doesn't have that pressure that some of the other guys do. He doesn't have that pressure of an Arch Manning or
right.
The guy from LSU that they Heisman front runner and all this kind of stuff. So he doesn't have that pressure on him. So that helps him quite a bit in his growth as they move on. But I think Ohio State wins this one fairly easily.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they'd blow them out or anything, and I think like a lot of games, tight for a quarter or two, and then maybe they pull away in the second half. Just, avoid mistakes. And he's been a smart quarterback in the 3 games he's played. Texas was a big game until the next 2 weeks went by, and it seems like it wasn't a super big game, but because Texas has faltered a little bit, even though their defense was decent. And that game was not a blowout by Ohio State by any chance, but they certainly played great defense against them. So I think it's a running quarterback at Washington, so they got to kind of keep their heels on that. But Julian Sayin, has for the most part made good decisions. Yeah, he's throwing a couple of picks. They're all going to throw him. He's learning, but he doesn't get rattled. He has a nice ball, and my motto for this year as a Buckeye fan was throw it to 4 and see what happens.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So-
throw it to 4, and if you're when you're on defense, throw it to downs.
yeah. Let downs cook, if you will.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So same time as that game is number 4, number 13, LSU at Ole Miss. Now, what are you thinking about that when you meet the SEC guy?
Well, I think it's the fact that it's at Ole Miss, I think certainly helps Ole Miss a little bit. LSU for the most part has not only they looked the part, they were living up to expectations. Ole Miss is another team, and we talked the other day a little bit about I said Ole Miss is kind of the Penn State of the SEC. They just can't seem to get over that hump. I don't know that they're going to be able to do it now. I think they can keep a really close game, but I still have LSU winning that game.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I feel what you said is almost exactly how I feel. It's hard for me to really completely wrap my arms around Ole Miss, if you will, and say, man, let's do it. Much like Penn State, I need to see it, a little more. Yeah. And against big teams, for sure. And they're at home. This is a big game. It's 3:30. I'm sure they would love to have this at night, but it's not. And, LSU has got all the pieces in place for sure. Haven't really put it all together this season yet, but they haven't lost, so
right.
Nothing there. But even though Ole Miss is home, I go with the Tigers. I just think they got a little bit more. I think it could be a scoring fest because I know LSU is going to put up points. And I know Ole Miss is going to try to put up points, and it just could be one of those games where who has the ball somewhat last, but maybe not quite like the old Big 12 days. But but LSU, if either one of them play good defense, I think it'll be LSU's defense that plays better than Ole Miss, and that's probably going to be the difference in the game, barring penalties and stuff.
Yes, and I think LSU is probably the most improved defensive team in the country. You look at last year, what killed them. They had no problem offensively. They just couldn't stop anybody defensively, and
right.
And, they made all the right moves and brought in the right people to make a huge difference this year. So that defense is much improved from a season ago.
Yeah, LSU or Ole Miss, I think 2 or 3 games last year, Kentucky was one of them, where they had a game in hand and then they just let it slip out of their fingers. It couldn't close. So they're definitely wanting to right the ship this year. So it's a great game. We'll find out a lot about these teams. It's just like many other ones on who's got an edge and who's got something stuff they got to fix.
Right.
We got the Auburn Tigers coming off a tough loss to Oklahoma, traveling to Texas A&M. So that's 2 straight road games. I think Texas A&M probably take care of business in this one. They're number 9 in the country, I think, for a reason. Are you there?
Freeze up. Yeah, you froze up for a second.
Oh, am I not frozen up now?
No, you're
okay. Cool.
You're okay now. Yeah, that Texas A&M has they've looked pretty good. They've been a little bit of a surprise in the SEC this year, so they're doing well. And of course, there's a big favor to the home teams for this coming week for these big games. It's hard not to give a huge edge to the teams that are playing at home because it makes such a difference in college football. And the same thing with Texas A&M. Auburn. They've another. They're playing well.
Yep.
They kind of, everybody, they got screwed against Oklahoma because, they ran that one play. But, Auburn had like 10 sacks in that game.
Yeah.
So Auburn's really doing well defensively. So that Texas A&M Auburn game, I think that's going to be a really close game.
Do you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's A&M at home makes me think A&M's got a good edge in that one because
Yeah.
that's a if there's again at night that's just a totally different environment. That's where
Oh yeah.
it's crazy in that environment. So, but yeah, I think Auburn's good this year. I don't think they're as quite as good as they would like to be, especially playing OU and then A&M. I think A&M's a better team than OU, and they had a lot of trouble with OU. So they OU got to their quarterback 10 times in that game. So
Right.
yeah. So and then right on the heels of that is Indiana coming off a huge win at home against Illinois. They're traveling to Iowa.
Right.
And there's one thing, one thing you used to know about Iowa is always take the under. They don't score a lot of points, and they go out to Rutgers and they score like the over was done for the first half of that game. They scored so many points. That's not very indicative of Iowa, but defense is. So it's going to be a real test for Indiana if they can go in there and take care of business. Doesn't matter how you win it, as long as you come out of Iowa with the dub. So that's my
Right.
W. My W of the week is Indiana going into Iowa and coming out with the dub.
Yeah, I think Indiana will be good against Iowa. The thing about Iowa, and we've seen it, over the years in the past. A lot of times when you go into Iowa, you know, they're pretty good at giving even a heck of a run or even knocking off one of the top teams.
Yep.
And I think but I mean Indiana, last year and so far this year have really impressed me. So I think Indiana will be okay, but like you just said, when you go into Iowa, well, you just never know.
Yeah. One interesting thing I heard about Indiana on the way home today was you probably already know they're the losingest football program in all of football, college football. They've lost more games than any other program in college football. I'm guessing that's FBS. But they're only 2 or 3 games behind Northwestern.
Okay.
And so they're figuring, looking at the schedule, they could pass Northwestern this season, and put Northwestern in the bottom of the basement.
Put them in the
So,
basement.
yeah, so that's something. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one, and they're hoping that I was listening today. There's a good chance it's going to be at Indiana against UCLA when that thing flips, because they should have a parade or something. Then I completely agree, because they've been the doormats for quite some time. So that'd be a heck of a thing for. And you can't, a lot of people. I heard they're talking about, they got rid of Mike Gundy this week. They're trying to.
Yeah.
So some teams want to move into the future, the new NIL, the new everything, because you can't win unless you're doing this and spending gobs of money. And this guy goes, well, my answer to that is Kirk Signetti. Look what he's doing in Indiana. He ain't got $50 million payroll, and he's
Right.
So if you could coach and recruit, you can still win in college football, at least for now, I think. But who knows what's going to happen in another 5 to 10 years.
Well, I think you can. I think you can certainly win in college football. The one thing that does worry me about is, if when you don't have all that money, is when you get to the playoffs. Maybe not so much in the first round, depending on how it falls. But as it goes on, the cream normally comes to the top.
Yep.
And nowadays it's going to be the money pretty much comes to the top. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see, at least for right now.
You're probably certainly right. I remember you and I having conversations 2 or 3 years ago where it was the recruiting rises to the top. Now it's the money rises to the top.
Exactly right.
Kind of goes along with the recruiting, as long as you're recruiting the right guys and giving them the right amount of money.
Right. Well, that's it.
Yeah. So, there's Tennessee and Mississippi State. That's a good game. That's at Mississippi State. That's a tough road game for Tennessee, coming off a tough loss to Georgia. Iowa State's hosting Arizona. Lots of good ones. And then we got the 2 big ones at night. And which one you want to go whiteout first? You want to go Bama, Georgia?
We can go Bama, Georgia.
Big. This has been the game that's on the calendar every year for, I don't know, 5, 6 years now. Georgia's
Right.
kryptonite is Alabama. They can't seem to really get a good streak going against that team. They beat them once, they lose 4 in a row.
Right.
But they can beat almost everybody else. And, Bama, they look a lot different than they did after week 1. And this is Bama, Georgia at Georgia. So we're going to learn a lot. What is your take on this?
Well, I think the one thing is, you're right. The one thing Alabama has going for them is, that they have that edge of, hey, we kind of own you, and of course, that's going to be in the back of Georgia's head, trying to get past it, get getting past Alabama, then that could have a little bit of a factor, going into it. Hey, we're in your head here, and that could make a little bit of a difference. As far as the teams go, Georgia has done what they're supposed to do. That another team that's the expectations that we've seen. Now they're at home and it's at night. That's a tough enough deal right there. And then Alabama, they've looked great the last 2 weeks against inferior teams.
Yep.
One of the most impressive things, regardless of who they were playing, is Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama, is like 42 for 48 with 4 drop passes. His almost perfect, which, I don't care who you're playing. That's pretty daggone impressive.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he's going to be able to do that kind of thing against Georgia, but if he can continue to produce like that and play really well, they can certainly give Georgia, a run for it. My concern is, with Alabama is this. They look good the last 2 weeks, but I still can't get past that first week with Florida State. People say, oh, they've rebounded from that. Well, have they? We don't know yet, but
Right.
They literally got pushed all over the field. They were not prepared. They were lazy. You couldn't say anything good about them in that game. So, we haven't seen anything yet to say how much they've improved from that, or if they've even improved from that. It's easy to beat up on McNeese State or whoever it was,
Louisiana Monroe, and
so now you got Georgia, and they're certainly going to have their hands full. But until they show me that hey, that first week was that we weren't prepared, and we own it, and we're bouncing back, and we're going to respond. I've got Georgia in this game by probably a couple scores. I got a 28-17 game, Georgia, and I think that if Alabama can play them, if they can win the game, that's absolutely fantastic.
Sure.
But a really tough hill to climb for them. The big thing for Alabama is if they can really make it a game and keep it close, I still think that's a little bit of a win for Alabama. It'll hurt them because that'll be their second loss, and they certainly can't afford another one. But if Georgia continues to take care of business moving forward, and Alabama, turns that corner and makes people believe, hey, we're back. We've straightened the ship, or
Right.
what however you want to say it. That would be good. But if Georgia comes in and wins by a couple of scores, or even worse, God forbid. But that I think that makes a difference. But I definitely got Georgia. And like I said, Alabama needs to keep it close. They need to keep it real close. Down to the last possession.
Yeah, the week one, I've heard a lot of talk about. I'm sure there's a little bit of everything is true, but not everything is true. It was Ty Simpson's first game. It's a road game. It's a tough environment. It's a legendary place for a team that just came off their worst season in about 20 years.
Yeah.
So it was just a firestorm, and there was no doubt the Florida State was ready for that game, and it honestly looked like Alabama wasn't quite ready to play that game that way, and they got pushed around. Like you said, they did. Florida State looked faster, everything, it just better all the way around. And yes, Alabama's done things better in the last couple of games. It's been against inferior opponents. You still got to do it versus struggling against inferior opponents would have been a really ugly look. So at least they didn't do that. That's a positive thing. You're on the road, hostile environment. You got to play these games. So yeah, if Alabama loses, it doesn't kill their season. It's their first SEC loss, but it is their second loss overall. So if they do lose, you're right. It is, how'd the game go? Were they super competitive? Was it a dogfight like most of Georgia Alabama games are? Doesn't matter who's up at halftime because the other team's going to come back, and you're going all the way to the fourth quarter, and it's just whoever wins. That's a win. That's a win for both of them, just because it's not going to kill either one seed. It's going to make it a lot harder for Alabama with the second loss.
Right.
But they could still run the table, win the SEC by probably seeing Georgia again. But if they do win, then it's even better than that, because now they got one up on Georgia, and Georgia's going, we just can't beat this team. I don't understand it. We can't beat this team. So it's going to be really interesting. It should be a good game. And like you said, no matter what the score is at halftime, we all know who makes good adjustments, and that's Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I've said that several times.
Yeah, and it's the dead honest truth. So that's a 4-quarter game, unless it's just out of hand all the way around in Kirby's favor, which I would be shocked if they just flat out annihilated Alabama from the jump. But at the same time, if it's looking real bad, then it feels like last year, where you're thinking, okay, now they've come around, they've made it, and then they come out the next week and get killed by somebody. It's like, what's going on? So hopefully that didn't happen.
Well, if we got to, as an Alabama fan, I mean, I know this, better than anybody, but you got to remember, Alabama lost 4 games last year.
Yep.
And their season ended with 3 straight losses. So, and then the Florida State thing. So, Alabama's got, they got a lot to prove this game to prove to not only all the experts and the fans and everything else, but to themselves.
Right.
That hey, we're okay. They lost to Michigan. They lost to Oklahoma. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Tennessee. And a couple of those teams you can get, but some of them are just like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So they've got a lot to prove on how they play, and this game. But like I said, I still have Georgia, but hopefully Alabama can keep it really, really close and play a really strong game where people say, oh well, man, that was a heck of a game. They really look good. So whether it's probably be better for Alabama if it was a lower scoring game, if it, in the 20s or something like that. If it gets up out of control, I don't. I don't. I mean, it could. But, I don't think it will with those 2 defenses.
Yeah, I agree. If it's anything other than a great win in a tight game for either one of the teams, if it's anything other than that, especially if Alabama loses and it's not in a way where they had a great game and there was a good chance they could have won, it's extra. It's a little more than just bad. It's bad for the team, bad for the season, and then it's going to look like, especially if it's a really ugly game, that Kalen just doesn't have that team. The team's not buying into it, because if there's one thing you say about it's fair or unfair, you're always going to be comparing Kalen DeBoer to Saban because you followed him. Saban's teams, when they got embarrassed, you never wanted to be the team that followed them because you knew you were going to get the greatest effort you've ever seen, and you were probably going to lose that next game no matter who you were. So they got to look like they're all on the same page. They're all buying it in, and it's got to be a great game. And if they come out on top, that's good for them moving forward. And if they don't, hopefully it's a really good loss, hard fought, had a chance, and didn't get it done. And They're still feeling good about this. You're right. They need confidence, and this is the kind of game they need it in. There's no doubt.
With what they have coming up, if it's not a good game, Alabama season's to me is basically over. With the other games that they have in the SEC, because I think that's just going to put a the final nail in the coffin, whatever you want to say. If they don't, with the history of how they finished last year, with the way the first game went this year, they can't have that happen again.
Oh yeah, and you gotta figure they're not looking ahead to Vanderbilt over Georgia, but Vanderbilt's next, and then they go to Missouri, then they host Tennessee, South Carolina, but then at the end of the season, LSU and Oklahoma, East Illinois and Auburn. It's a doable schedule, but it's not a cupcake schedule.
No,
but this game is probably the biggest game on their schedule, team wise. Not counting the Iron Bowl because that's your what you call it, the rivalry game. Until they say, I'm sure they want to pay Oklahoma back, and Oklahoma looks like they're better than last year, so that's probably going to end up being a big game. But they got that at home.
Well, it depends if their quarterback is back yet or not.
Oh, there's no doubt.
He should be back by that point. They're saying he's 3 or 4 weeks, so we'll see.
Yeah, I heard him talking about that yesterday, and then Bobby Carpenter was saying, it might be longer than that because it's his throwing hand thumb.
Right.
So not only did it heal, then you got to get your grip back and your timing and all that. So who knows? But this game, Alabama's got to lay it all, bring it all on the table, push all their chips in the middle, win this game. And honestly, I hope they do, because that's just better for college football. I think it's better for the SEC if it looks like Alabama's back for real, beating Georgia in their own backyard. Georgia, we know, is good. And then it just tightens the ACC up, or the SEC up quite a bit with Tennessee. Really had a great chance to beat Georgia and just missed the kick.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
What a crazy scene that was. So, but I'm with you. I'm going to take Georgia at home just because they're at home. But I really do hope Alabama pulls out the win. But if I had $5 on it, I put $5 on Georgia for sure. And then we go to if you say whiteout, just about everybody either says what's that or Penn State. Anybody knows that whiteout's at Penn State.
Well, if you're a college football fan, you know what a whiteout is. Penn State, and the fact that Oregon's got to come across the country into Penn State at night, whiteout. Penn State. Now it'll be interesting for them because we have both talked before that Penn State getting over the hump. Well, this maybe not the most critical thing to get over, but it would be a huge hurdle for Penn State to get past Oregon, even though everything leans their way. They're at home, it's at night, it's a whiteout, so we got a really interesting game.
Yeah, it's we both talked about how we both feel it's not like knocking off Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten, but beating Oregon. Oregon's a great team. They're one of the best teams. They're new to the Big Ten, so the history isn't there with constantly losing to them, and that's where the psyche comes in. If Penn State was to beat Oregon, then their mind, and they still got to beat those other teams, but that's a great win. If they lose to Oregon, then it's just going to stay with them until they beat somebody that's considered one of the top of the Big Ten. And when they do that, that's when people take them seriously. I think they can win tomorrow. I'm going to put my W on Penn State. On Penn State at home. And if they were on the road, it probably wouldn't do that. That whiteout environment is crazy. I was listening to I think it was when Auburn played there. You and I talked about it that night a couple of years ago when Auburn played at the whiteout. Yeah. And I think they said it was a tight end or a lineman was trying to get a call, and they said they couldn't even hear each other. They were standing next to each other. It's so crazy loud in that place,
Right.
And it ended up being a punt block or something. I don't know. It was a hilarious story, and so it matters. That place is nuts. That place sold out right when the tickets went on sale in the summer. And the whole place, so it's 100-something thousand plus stadium. And if you want to go there, they were doing a thing on the radio. The most expensive tickets this weekend is $400 minimum to get 2 feet in the door at Beaver Stadium in Penn State.
Oh yeah, that's not surprising at all. In this game, if Oregon loses, this is kind of like, not quite the same, but kind of like the Alabama, Oklahoma, the Georgia game, like the Alabama Georgia game. Coming into a hostile environment, if you can keep it close and really battle, and you lose that game, I don't know how bad that hurts Oregon if they run the table after that. Now, if they come into Penn State and beat Penn State, I think that is a dagger to Penn State. I really do, because they're going to have that. They have that loss on them.
Here we go again.
That's the big one. Yeah, here we go again. Exactly. That perfect words for it. And then of course they haven't had any luck whatsoever getting past Ohio State. So, this is almost an almost got to win for Penn State, because a loss would hurt Penn State more than it would Oregon. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that for sure, because Oregon crosses the country with a young quarterback who's playing great football, but they haven't played big teams yet. The biggest team they played was, Oklahoma State, which is horrible right now, and then they just beat Washington. No, I was watching by Washington State, so they haven't really beat a great team, but they're playing great football. And based on last year, and stuff, even though it's some teams, everybody's different than last year, so you can't really go by what happened last year.
Right.
But if you go to Beaver Stadium and you get beat, most people are like, well, hey, it's hard to win there, so just go back and try to run the table the rest of the way. And it's almost like when Ohio State went out to Oregon last year and lost a tight one. Hey, just go back home and get it done the rest of the season. So I agree. Oregon loses this one. Now, if they're blown out, that's a little different. But if they just lose this, and I don't.
Always different if you get blown out.
Yeah. So you lose a good game on the road in the whiteout. There's no real shame in that. But yeah, if Penn State's at home and they don't win this game, a really good tight game still would be kind of a dang it, we just can't get it done. Blowout. Man, Oregon goes there and blows them out. Wow. Now everybody's like, Penn State's not who we think we are.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think so either.
Teams can come into Penn State and win. You don't see teams come in at night in a whiteout and blow Penn State out. They've lost maybe. I couldn't even tell you exactly what it is, but I don't remember anybody coming in there and just blowing them away. Even in the tough games that they've had with Ohio State and some of the top teams, they've always been pretty close.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
They're right there. So I certainly don't see Oregon coming in there and blowing them up. Not that it couldn't happen.
Anything's possible.
Anything's
more
possible.
than likely.
Strange. You think Oregon's really fast. That's one thing. When you watch Oregon, you're like, man, they are fast.
And Penn State is grass, so that slows down Oregon a little bit,
right.
Which is, it's a factor, but, Penn State's a little used to playing on that where Oregon's playing on turf. So that's always a factor. But Ohio State plays on turf. They go up there and they play on grass. It changes things. Yep. Most of the time, whenever there's a blowout at Beaver Stadium, it's in favor of Penn State.
I'm with you. I have Penn State winning that game, mostly for the factor that they're at home at night. And and all the whiteout and all that stuff. So I have Penn State winning that game. I think it's important for Oregon to keep it somewhat close. I don't think that'll hurt them all that bad, especially if these teams, if we see, we talked about the Alabama Georgia game. If we see a Georgia and we see a Penn State run the table and do all that stuff, that loss isn't going to hurt them all that much.
Right. Yeah, when you're playing on the road in a conference and it's a tough loss that you had, a couple plays here, we could have won that game. Then that's a good loss. That means you can go home and go, hey, look, man, we're a good team. We played real good. We almost beat that team in their own environment. It's a tough place to play. Let's move forward. We're doing all right. So if you go in there and you get the doors blown off you, then you're kind of like, all right, what's going on and what happened? How do we lose that bad? Blah blah blah. So that's for both Alabama and Oregon. They can go in there and keep it close and maybe even have somewhat of a chance at some point towards the end. That's a good game, win or lose. And if they win, it's even great. It's a better game.
Yeah, I say keep it close. I even like that. I don't think there's any such thing as a good loss. I just don't.
It's better than a blowout, I guess. Well, one way to look at it.
Yeah, but when it comes right down to it,
right.
But you're right.
Especially with the CFP being 12 teams now, so it doesn't kill your season. It stinks, but you can survive it if it's just that one. Yeah.
And what I was going to say was, it ain't so much of how the team looks at it or how I would look at it. When I was coached, I hated to lose. 1 or 500. I just hated to lose. But more importantly, like you just said, how does the committee look at it? How does the AP look at it? How does the coaches poll look at it? Because that makes a difference in all this stuff of how it plays out to get into the playoffs.
Yep.
So, as far as that part of it goes, you're absolutely right. That's.
Yeah. And they should reward, these types of games so they'll keep playing them. If they're like, man, you lost on the road, so you're not even in the top 15 anymore. Like, well, I ain't going to play them anymore. Conference games are different, but non-coms and all that. It's great when this is a conference week, obviously, where a few weeks ago it's been non-conference, but some great games. But so this is wonderful stuff, man. I saw this week 1. I found this in week 5. Like, boy, we're gonna have a lot of fun this week talking about all these games, and some of them have changed a little bit. Clemson is not really having a relevant season so far, so they got to do something big to turn that around, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I don't think Dabo's job's in jeopardy, nothing like that. Now, if he loses every game the rest of the season and goes into next year, starts out 0-3, maybe, I don't know. But he's won 2 natties, so it's a little.
Yeah, I've always I like Dabo. I've always kind of liked Dabo. He came from Alabama, all that good stuff.
Yep.
But he's at a point right now. To me, I listen to him now, and I'm just like, shut up, just shut up and take care of business.
Right.
You keep talking, and it keeps looking worse and worse, and it to me it makes things more and more unravel. If they don't want me here, to fire me. Almost making excuses for things, and I just want Dabo, shut up, take care of business, get your team straightened out. That's what he needs to worry about, and it seems like he's getting a little wrapped up into all the verbiage and everything else that he really doesn't need to do.
Yeah, their team hasn't looked like it did when they were a championship caliber team since Venables left. Right, wrong, or indifferent. They've been good. They've won. They made it to the CFP last year, but they kind of backdoored their way in. But they didn't win any. So it's like they're just not up to what they used to be when they were a literal championship. That would almost look like it equaled Alabama and Georgia at times. In those 4 or 5 year span. And it is tough. There is no doubt it's tough to stay at the top and get to the top and all that, with all the other competition there is. So, but one interesting thing was the week before last, Syracuse got embarrassed by somebody. And if you remember, the coach for Syracuse made his team stay out and run line drills in front of the fans. And then look what they did to Syracuse this week, or the Clemson.
I just believe that that there comes a time to focus on your team,
right,
and not so much. Almost like on yourself.
The media.
The media, or on yourself, or everything. The media. That's a perfect good point. And just focus on your team, and basically, hey, this is on me. What do we got to do to get better? Let's get this coaching staff together. What do we got to do to get better? What do we got to do to turn this thing around? And really, that's the only thing he needs to be worried about.
Absolutely. I like Dabo too. Great personality, good old boy, old school kind of a thing. And you hate to see it. You like to see guys like that right the ship and bring it around and have them, be relevant, versus changing the guard and who you got in there, and the next thing you know, Clemson is what they were 20 years ago, where nobody's even talking about them. So you never want to see that happening. So they've been the darling of the ACC for about 10, 15 years, and so, but Florida, I mean, Miami, they look like they're the tops in the ACC this year so far. At least they're definitely the tops so far, But
well, I think Miami and Florida State probably,
and they play each other. Is next week? I think
it's coming up now. I knew that they did. I wasn't sure when it was.
Yeah, let me click on Florida State real quick, because I looked at it last week. They play Florida State's at Virginia, and then I'm clicking on it right now. And then October 4th, they are hosting Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, that's big. That's
Tallahassee.
Big that they have that home game there. So,
and what stinks about it? Oh, it is at night. So that's another night game in Florida State. Wow, fun.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how a night game even changes the dynamics that much more?
It really does.
Than if they play at 3:30. If they play at noon or 3:30. The Big Tens are the ones that always usually have the noon games. But
the Fox and all that.
Yeah, a lot of them 3:30. You see that, but when you have a night game at home at places like Penn State, LSU, I mean Clemson too. I mean that's another one. Tennessee,
South Carolina at night's crazy. I mean they got a nice thing going. I mean they're the whole fan. It's just the atmosphere they do, the music, the walk in, the fireworks. There's a lot of cool places. Now obviously Tennessee, like you're saying, Beaver Stadium. Oh, yeah. Even Michigan's place is huge. The big places, they're crazy at night. There's no doubt. And there's a lot more night games in the South because of what Fox is doing with the Big Ten and the Big 12, putting those games at noon. But the ratings are good. Well, you know what? The ratings are going to be good no matter where you put Ohio State. Everybody likes to watch Ohio State. Got a big fan base, but it's different at night, and that's what a lot of fan bases, including Ohio State, is really fed up with. Is they got T-shirts now about telling Fox to put the games on at night because Ohio State, I think, has one night game this year. They already played it against the MAC team, and I think they might have one other, and it's another it's nobody good because everybody good they put on at noon. It's just it is what it is. Who cares? But
it's always been that way. For as long as I can remember. That
when Urban got there, we played that. There was like Wisconsin. We go to Wisconsin night game. That's the other one. But here at Ohio State, we have Wisconsin at night. We have Nebraska at night. We get Penn State at night. We had some night games, but ever since the last couple of years, Fox has got this big noon, and their bell cow is Ohio State, Michigan. The big brands, the Penn State. They're pulling like last year's Ohio State and Penn State, big noon. Even at Beaver Stadium, there used to be a whiteout game. So, yeah.
Definitely some interesting games with teams with a lot on the line of how they're going to show up and perform. Win, loser, that's going to make a little difference for a couple of these teams anyways. But when the smoke clears, we're going to know a whole lot more than what we know now.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of things to unravel next week. And when these games are done, to see a lot more things are going to come into focus. It's going to be a little more clear about who's where, especially with Alabama, Georgia, Penn State, and Oregon. And there's a few others that, LSU and Ole Miss, a lot of things are. And then the ones that we're not hitting on that we don't know that are going to become the upsets are the ones we're like, Wake Forest upsets Georgia Tech. That's going to just throw a real wrench at what Georgia Tech's trying to do. Illinois and USC is interesting game from a Big Ten standpoint, but it's just to see who can maybe try to stay relevant. If Indiana can stay, with that as in that fourth slot, fighting for the third slot with Penn State by beating Iowa. Right. So there's a lot of good stuff, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, there's one of the last things I wanted to bring, talking about, with a lot to prove, or how much they've improved and all that kind of stuff. Talking about Alabama and stuff. The other one I want to see, and they have a bye this week, is Texas. Yeah, Texas is kind of in the same boat as I shouldn't say they're in the same boat, because they actually played a pretty good game against Ohio State. They didn't get pushed around like Alabama did. That was for sure. But they still some question marks with Arch and all that kind of stuff with that. And he's another one that's he's looked much better the last couple of weeks. So kind of anxious to see them come up against top competition to see. Let's see what they got and how much they've improved.
Yeah, because like you said, they're on a bye this week, and then their next game is at Florida. And, Florida's going to be chomping to make sure they try to get a win because they've taken some lumps. And that's not going to be an easy place for Arch to go on the road. It's another road game for them against a hostile environment. Everybody knows the Swamp is no fun. It's a 3:30 kick, so it's a little late. Then after that, they got Oklahoma, then Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. And then they got Georgia, Arkansas, and A&M. So we'll learn a lot about Texas next week for sure if they go into the Swamp, pull out a victory.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think if they don't, then it's kind of like, is Florida much better, or is Texas, just not that good? Because they haven't looked good except against inferior opponents,
Well, Florida's on the verge of, we talked about, Florida State last year, a year ago, and Florida's almost on the verge of that kind of season if they don't turn it around, because these things snowball. And it's not always. Obviously it's the team, but it's also, all the hoopla, all the pressure from the media, all the pressure from the so-called experts, like not near the experts that you and I are, but
and then the boosters.
But all that stuff. It's people hear that. The players hear that, the coaches hear that. So the wheels can fall off pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, was it Mario Cristobal has been, I think it's his fourth year in Miami. I think maybe third. I think it's 3 or 4. And then who's the guy Napier in Florida? It's about the same number of years that he's been in Florida, and he's about batting 500. Where Miami has a great team this year so far. It had a good one last year, so it's like they're like, man, Napier's a great guy. He's a great coach. They got a gauntlet, a hard schedule. Okay, yes, they got a gauntlet, but everybody's going to have a gauntlet in the SEC of some more than others. But you got to win some of them, And they waited till the end of last year to win when it really didn't matter to them. It didn't make it change their season of getting into the CFP or anything. But maybe, just maybe, Napier's not good enough to get them in more wins because they got a good team. They've looked good, but then they've looked bad. Where, Cristobal, people criticized him. Was it last year, or the year before? They had the weird thing at the end of the game against Georgia Tech where they ran the football. All they do was kneel down and end up coughing it up, and then Georgia Tech put in the end zone and won the game.
Yeah.
So it's like,
we've seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, I don't know Napier at all. That's a tough one to say 3 times, but I don't doubt it's a tough schedule. But maybe, just maybe, after 4 years of 500 football for the most part, maybe Napier really isn't the guy for Florida. You never know.
Well, we're going to have that question depending on how things go this weekend, maybe about a couple other coaches too, including Alabama's coach. But one thing, since we're on the coaching talk, you talked a little bit earlier about Gundy at Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State kind of fumbled here because they really struggled last year. The end of the season, off season, would have been a perfect time to make a change, opportunity to bring somebody else in, maybe a top coordinator or something, give them a chance at the job or something like that. Doing something at week 5 of the season. I just don't see where that's all that good of a thing. It might end up working out great for them. I don't know, but it just seems like, man, you guys waited too long to make that change.
Yeah, I mean, I think the year before last they won 10 games, and I think the majority of his time as the coach they were 10-game winners. I think 6% of his seasons weren't 10 games. So it's like he was a very successful coach, and he won Big 12 titles. No national titles, but who in the Big 12 has a national title? In this last 2 decades, nobody.
Right.
So it's not like he's way lower than anybody. But yeah, last year was horrible. Lost every game, and they had everybody back from the season before. So it's like, wow, what happened? It's just amazing. Like you said, sometimes these things snowball. You lose 2 or 3, and then everybody's like, you just can't get up for games when you're already that far behind the 8 ball sometimes. And like you said, that could happen to Florida if they lose their next game, not just another one, their next game.
Yeah,
locker room's gonna be in worse shape.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State lost like 8 or 9 games last year.
Well, they lost all their conference games. They were over in the conference.
Yeah,
I think they played 9. So
yeah, so they were, they lost 9 games last year.
So, but I think like you, get rid of him after the season last year, or let him finish out this season, or get farther into the season. Because 5 games. What are you doing? I mean, how are you going to? You really expect something to be different? I'm sure you don't. I'm sure it's the boosters saying get rid of him. He's got a $10 million buyout or something. Like maybe it's 15. They're like, big deal. Jimbo Fisher could pay that buyout and still have plenty of money left over.
Well, that's what they. We talked about that. We talked about that last week. The best job to have is a fired college football coach that got his buyout.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So Nick, I think Nick Saban said it best at game day last week. He said, "Look, things have changed. Times have changed. The way we're doing things has changed. You have to change with it. And if you're not willing to change with it, it's going to pass you by."
Yep.
And I honestly think he was kind of directing that at Dabo Swinney because it was, right after that Clemson game. But, he's absolutely right. It's not the game that it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
5, whatever it's been, it's changing more and more all the time. And until they come up with something to regulate or control a little bit of this whole NIL thing and where it's going and who's getting it, it's going to continue to be that way. So you're going to have to change or come up with the money, hit the lottery. You're going to have to do something.
Yeah, because they're going to be paying the players revenue share, but then they're all going to get NIL too, and that's where the rubber's going to meet the road on trying to control NIL because there's anybody that tries to control somebody's NIL is probably going to look at a lawsuit going, hey, you're keeping me from making money on myself and you're unconstitutional and yada, yada. So it's a weird deal. And yeah, the only way they can do that is to make them, employees. Well, now you got a collective bargaining agreement and now we're in the NFL. It's just, and man, I tell you what, I watched some NFL last week and it's this horrible product, man. Every game is, too close. No, it's all so vanilla. I love college football so much better. The last thing I ever want to happen to this sport is them become the NFL because that would just be horrible.
It's funny you say that because I don't watch a whole lot of the NFL, but I did catch the end. I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe it was the Browns.
Browns, how they won. And
then the next 2 or 3 games after that, all kind of finished the same way. Blocked field goal. I mean, that happened like 2 or 3. They really had some really wild, crazy finishes in the NFL last week. But I don't normally get to see it. It just so happened that I turned on into that game. Hey, I watched the last couple of minutes of it. Then it went to the highlights of the next one. It finished the same way. Then it went to the next one. It finished the same way. I'm like, man, this is like deja vu. It's happening over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, at least at least they had some interesting games last week, but I'm with you all the way. To me, it's all about college football. Saturday's my day. Sunday, I don't really even have to watch any football, to be honest with you. I got stuff to do, things get done.
Yep.
Used to be just the opposite of that. I'd always
too.
Want to catch Alabama or you catch Ohio State or something. All this other stuff, I didn't get wrapped up into it a whole lot. And then it was all about the NFL. And then 6-7 years ago, whatever it was, when things got different and changed and people were acting certain ways and all that kind of stuff, I just kind of got away from the NFL completely and really tuned into the college game, which, I mean, I was always into the Alabama for, over 50 years, and I always kind of followed, what's Ohio State doing and this and that. But then all of a sudden, wait a minute, look at all these other teams out here. This is a great game. This is an absolute fabulous game with young guys throwing it all on the line, giving it all that they got. And, of course, then, in the beginning of all that stuff, there wasn't an NIL. These guys were, as they're playing big for the love of the game, to get an education.
And maybe make the NFL.
Make it to the NFL, exactly.
Maybe.
And make some money. So, I mean, it's certain that part of it has certainly changed. But, yeah.
And play usually for 3 or 4 years instead of, 2, you sit 1, play 2, and you go to the NFL. I mean, it's so different now. I grew up Cowboys fan. I was born in Texas, and I was just all about the Cowboys. And I had their newspaper subscription delivered to Ohio, and they finally won Super Bowls in my lifetime with Troy. My young lifetime was the end of Staubach and Danny White and all that. Danny White was my idol when I was a kid. And it was all Dallas, Aikman, Emmett, and I never really liked Jerry Jones for what he did to Tom Landry, but I liked Jimmy, and I was into the team, and they won 3, and it was fantastic. And for a number of years after, I did fantasy football, and I was a commissioner of the league, and all about the time I got married, so it's just the NFL was just all about, this guy's now the highest paid quarterback of all time. I'm going, he stinks, why is he higher paid than this other guy? Now it's like it's all about the money, I'll never forget. I was listening to the radio and some guy's talking. He's a player somewhere saying, I don't know if I should try to go to a team that's going to win championships or should I just go to a team that's going to pay me a lot of money? He's a free agent. And some dude, ex-player calls in and goes, man, you can buy rings on eBay. Go get your money. And I'm like, that says enough for me. It's all about the money. And and the college football is not there now, but I fear that it's going to get there. I hope it doesn't. I know there's the fringe of some that do, but most, Will Howard didn't come to Ohio State because he got paid a boatload of money. He came to make himself a better candidate for NFL and to win a championship. So, and I love Will Howard. I just loved everything about him last year. He was the grit and gave you everything he had, and he wasn't out there throwing watches in the wind and stuff like that. So, and that's the fans are so crazy in college football. And you watch something like that on Saturdays now, and then you turn on an NFL game, and you're like, this sounds like I'm watching a tennis match. It's so silent, There's a few that aren't. Yeah, so the college game is just incredible, and we love it, and that's why we're doing the show. I wouldn't be doing this for an NFL game. That's NFL talk, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, true.
Quick question: if they had fired Gundy last year, and let's say Kirk Cignetti was never with Indiana, and Kirk Cignetti goes to Oklahoma State. You think they're an O for this year?
I mean, I think that, I mean, obviously, coaching makes a huge difference.
Yep.
We've seen that guy make a difference at Indiana. We've seen guys come in. The difference that Nick Saban made, the difference that Josh Heupel made. The difference that Kirby Smart makes. It's the kind of the thing still kind of out there on Steve Sarkisian, but I mean, coaching definitely makes a difference. We've seen teams absolutely turn around just by making a coaching change alone. And I think some of these guys get in the rut of hey, this is the way we do it. This way I've always done it. It's successful. And they don't. Like I was saying earlier, the thing that Nick Saban was talking about, they don't make those changes and stuff. So sometimes it's better to, the time has kind of run out on it. And I felt that way with Oklahoma State. You bring a guy like that in, I certainly think that makes a huge difference.
Yep. I agree. One of the things about, we could talk about Saban being a guy who didn't just say, this is the way I do it, and I'm always going to do it this way. In his run in the beginning, it was 3-6, 3-9 football games. Field goals, smothering defense, run the football.
Oh, yeah.
And then 2 or 3 years go by. Next thing you know, they're airing it out all over the place. And because they're adapting with the game. So that's definitely one of the, I think, is the sign of a great coach is you look at the team you got, you look at your players, and you play to their strengths, and you put them to, and you don't say you have to do this. You say, what are you good at? And, okay, we're going to go build around that, and that's what the good do, like Saban and others, Urban Meyer, Tressel, guys like that. Tressel played Tressel ball, but then he also opened it up when he had the guys to do it. But defense was always a core.
Oh. Defense is always a core. You'll always heard defense wins championships, and it does.
Yep.
I don't think that's ever going to change. But open it up to what you said, like you just said. Coming into the league, Nick Saban, some of the old school guys, they come in there when you run the football, you play great defense. Well, that was great, but then you got to bring in, and it's not just the head coaches who you bring in. You bring in a Lane Kiffin to be the offensive coordinator, and and you buy into, hey, let's open things up. That's a big part of being a really good coach is being able to, hey, this is what we got. This is what we need to do. Okay, let's try that. I'm not going to be so stubborn. Nope, we're not going to do that. And I got to believe there's some coaches out there that are like that.
Oh yeah.
But you have to go with the change to open that up. But I think it's still the coach has to have that mentality and able to adapt and change. But he also needs to bring in the right people around him because he's not going to be able to do it by himself.
Yeah, 100%. We've talked about too, especially when it comes to play calling coaches like Ryan Day. He needed to give up the play calling.
Yeah.
And it's not because that was the only. It just makes more sense in this day and age. The coach has got to be a guy that oversees everything, and you got to have great guys doing those jobs. You can't be so guarded to the vest that you think I still got to call the plays. I know Sark's still calling his plays. I think he really has got to find somebody to do that for him, so he can be the CEO of that team and oversee all of it. And because that's, I think, what the great teams. Saban was that way. He had Sark, he had Kirby, he had Lane. Those guys were doing it all.
Some of the people he had the offensive coordinators they had in 20. We know when they had such a great run with Mac Jones and all that kind of stuff. And they had the guy that was from New England. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. As the offensive coordinator, and that makes it. You're seeing a little bit more of that. I mean, some of these teams are actually bringing in these NFL guys to be the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
In case of the Buckeyes and stuff. And I mean these guys. These guys know what they're doing. I mean, they have experience. They probably have some experience in the college. I know a lot of them do, but they have at the very highest level. So and now that we're seeing this opened up offense, much like we've seen in the NFL, I mean, these guys know a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. And some of these guys come back. It's a little more fun to come back, like Chip Kelly dropped being the head coach, comes back just to be a coordinator so he can have fun again. Now he's a coordinator in the NFL.
Right.
But because the head coaching, you got to really want to do it in the college level, or you just need to let somebody else do it and just go be a coordinator. And that's what he did, because and Saban didn't want to do it either. It's like, so
Right.
instead of sticking around and ruining the program, he's like, yeah, I'm going to retire. It's a great time to do it, because what him and his wife, why we do this is no longer happening. So let's just go ahead and call it. And I think it was great, only because he's a great person to kind of fill in with Corso exiting game day. I don't really watch game day a whole lot because I'm doing other stuff, but I love Saban on game day. I've seen the clips and stuff. He's great.
You have to watch Pat McAfee and Nick Saban. That right
Oh,
there.
I've seen the clips and stuff. It's hilarious.
That right there alone makes that show. And I really like Herb Street.
Yep.
The whole thing they got going on, and the little twist and things they throw into it. And Saban with his one-liners. Oh my gosh! And then,
I love how he digs into Desmond. Desmond will never pick against Michigan. So he'll say, I got the Wolverines, and Saban's like, still, really? You're going to say that?
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Pat McAfee, you never know what he's going to do. That guy's he's just a loose cannon out there. So
he's an interesting guy. I've seen. He was like, I saw a thing where he played college ball at West Virginia, and he was the field goal kicker. And he missed 2 field goals in a game that if they would have made them, they would have went to the BCS championship game. So he got death threats, things thrown at his house, because he's from West Virginia. Then he goes to the Colts and does something weird where he gets arrested. And then he was saying, the police, their version of the story is that I was swimming in the canal or whatever. And he was trying, So, but then, so then the next thing you know, he just kind of reinvents himself. He did WWE for a while. I don't think he wrestled huge as much as he was more of an entertainment person, but he did some stuff in the rink there. And he started this show, podcast, YouTube thing that's this humongous deal. And that's how he got in the ESPN. They got his show on their YouTube channel or something, and now he's on there. And he is great for the sport. I mean, I'll tell you what, he is an entertaining guy. I have seen more last year. This year I'll see some more once we get through, September and into October. The field goal kicking for money. He's putting up big bucks, and he's a charismatic personality, and he makes it fun. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah, I love watching that show, and I didn't used to watch it, and then here just recently, towards the end of last year and this year, I'm like, oh man, I gotta watch game day before the
I used to love watching it. Corso's headgear. Always wanted to see him pick the Buckeyes when they were the game of the week, whatever, and stuff, and all that. So it was, and I did watch this year the first game where they, Corso kind of retired, and he did it at Ohio State, which is the first game he ever picked a headgear on. So he ended his career at Ohio State picking the Buckeyes, and of course they beat Texas. So kind of a bookend. And the funny thing was he picked 5 games that day, and everybody picked one team, and he picked the other one.
He was 5 for 5.
He picked Florida State, where they all picked Alabama.
Yeah,
he picked another ones. Yeah, and he won every one of them. And he picked all the places that he played at or coached at.
Yeah.
IU, Notre Dame, and Florida State, whatever. And so it's pretty funny. Pretty funny, but
pretty cool. So some big games coming up. So we've run kind of long today. So
yeah, hey, we love talking about college football. We can do this forever. Somebody want to pay us, we'll do it.
That's it.
So, hey, get your www.gg FE Network in the cart and get your 10% off. And tell us what you think when you get that. Next time you see us on here, he's going to have his. It should be coming in the 29th, and I'll have mine, and we'll be drinking W on live, and we'll tell you. Randy will tell you what he thinks, and I'm telling you, it's good stuff. I hadn't had a bad one yet, and we got a couple of giveaways I think we're going to talk about too. A lot of fun. So hit us up on YouTube, subscribe, and hit the bell. Facebook, give us a like, and look for us right here on the Fletcher Entertainment Network in both those places. And until then, enjoy the games of Week 5.